Before we begin, your support keeps us going. With nearly 90% of our viewers still not subscribed, we need your help to continue creating powerful, immersive stories. Please take a moment to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Also, let us know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. Elijah had always been the portrait of a devoted husband. A tireless provider, he labored day and night to build a life of comfort and security for his beloved wife, Annalise. Their marriage, in his eyes, stood firmly on a foundation of unshakable trust and shared sacrifice. He believed, with every fiber of his being, that he was giving her the life she deserved. As a rising executive in one of the city's most renowned firms, Elijah often found himself swallowed by the storm of corporate ambition, navigating back-to-back meetings, endless reports, and the relentless pressure to rise higher, to do more, to be more. He convinced himself that every missed dinner, every late night at the office, was a stepping stone toward a future they could both enjoy. But Annalise, once enchanted by Elijah's passion and drive, had begun to wither in the shadows of his ambition. In the early days, she had admired the fire in his eyes, the confidence in his voice, the man who seemed to bend time to his will. But over time, the sparkle faded. She felt like a delicate ornament, once cherished, now forgotten. Her own dreams had been buried beneath his, her own desires silenced by the echo of his footsteps heading out the door each morning. And then, as though conjured by fate, came Damien Roth, a man who embodied everything Elijah had unknowingly left behind. Damien, Elijah's superior at the firm, exuded power in quiet glances and spoke with the kind of charisma that demanded attention. There was a mystery about him, a magnetic allure that seemed both dangerous and irresistible. What began as harmless interactions soon shifted. At company events, their eyes met too often. Glances lingered, smiles held secret meanings. Polite conversations carried undercurrents neither of them dared name, yet both felt them, a tension that pulsed beneath every word. Damien had always been charming, but with Annalise, something was different. He saw through her practiced smiles, straight into the yearning she tried so hard to hide. And Annalise, in turn, saw in him the attention, the admiration, the hunger she hadn't felt in years. One night, Elijah returned home late, exhausted, drained, unaware that his wife's heart was no longer waiting at the door. Her body was present, but her thoughts were with Damien. The very next day, Damien invited her to lunch. The excuse? Discussing an upcoming charity gala. She hesitated, but the allure of secrecy was too intoxicating to ignore. Over glasses of aged wine and the soft glow of candlelight, the atmosphere shifted. What began as formal conversation quickly slipped into something more intimate. "I see the way you look at me," Damien whispered, his voice like velvet laced with danger. Annalise's breath caught. "And how is that?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Like you want to escape," he replied. In that moment, she felt utterly exposed. As if he had peeled back every layer of her soul and found the emptiness she kept hidden beneath years of quiet suffering. That evening, Damien offered to drive her home. The simple gesture carried weight, a thrill laced with risk. His hand brushed against hers, light, accidental, electric. When they reached her doorstep, silence filled the air between them, thick with tension and unspoken desire. "You don't have to live in his shadow," Damien said gently, his fingers tracing an invisible line along her wrist. "You deserve to be seen." That was all it took. The fire that had long been smothered inside her suddenly roared to life, wild and unstoppable. She leaned in without hesitation, capturing his lips in a kiss that felt like the first breath after drowning, desperate, electric, and long overdue. What had begun as lingering glances across crowded rooms had now blossomed into full-blown, stolen moments cloaked in shadows. They met in secret, behind closed doors of lavish hotel suites, beneath dim chandeliers that bore silent witness to whispered promises and tangled sheets. Each encounter was laced with danger, but neither Annalise nor Damien cared to look back. They were standing on the edge of a cliff, fully aware of the fall, yet unable to resist the pull. For Annalise, it was as if she had awakened from a long, colorless dream. For the first time in years, she felt seen, wanted, alive. Meanwhile, Elijah remained blissfully unaware, still grinding away at the life he believed he was building for them both. He threw himself deeper into his work, striving for recognition from a man who was, unbeknownst to him, methodically unraveling his marriage thread by fragile thread. Damien, the very figure Elijah sought to impress, had become the shadow in his home, the ghost at his table. But no secret, no matter how carefully hidden, stays buried forever. The affair between Annalise and Damien burned brighter with every passing day, fanned by lust, secrecy, and the illusion of invincibility. What once were fleeting temptations had evolved into a full-fledged addiction. The thrill of being caught, the forbidden nature of their connection. It consumed them, driving them deeper into a love that defied every boundary. Still, no matter how passionately guarded, secrets have a habit of leaking through the cracks. One evening, Elijah returned home earlier than usual. The moment he stepped through the door, he knew something was off. The air held a scent he couldn't place, an expensive cologne that didn't belong to him. Annalise greeted him with a nervous laugh, her phone clutched tightly in her hand like a lifeline. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. And in that instant, 1,000 puzzle pieces began shifting inside his mind. She had grown distant, detached. The warmth between them had faded like old paint peeling off a once beautiful wall. And now, the scent of another man lingered in the air. Driven by a sinking feeling he could no longer ignore, Elijah did something he never thought himself capable of. He installed a location tracker on Annalise's phone. He told himself it was just to ease his own mind, that he would find nothing, that his fears were only shadows playing tricks. But the truth has a cruel way of presenting itself, no matter how much we try to delay its arrival. 1 week later, the app lit up with a notification. Annalise was at an upscale hotel downtown. At that very moment, Damien had mysteriously canceled a critical company meeting, something he never did. And suddenly, everything clicked into place with excruciating clarity. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, wearing your boss's cologne in your own home. Elijah felt the rage rise like a tidal wave, crashing into the walls of his chest. His hands trembled. His stomach turned. The woman he loved, the life he thought he was preserving, it was all slipping through his fingers. But Elijah knew instinct wasn't enough. He needed proof. Cold, undeniable evidence that would silence every doubt and expose the truth in its rawest form. Quietly and without hesitation, he hired a private investigator. Within days, an envelope arrived, plain, unassuming, yet heavier than anything he had ever held. Inside were photographs, damning, unforgiving. There was Annalise, locked in Damien's arms. Their lips met in a kiss that spoke of long-burning desire, a kiss that tore through every vow, every memory, every fragile thread Elijah had once believed bound them together. The confrontation was no longer a question, it was a certainty. That evening, when Annalise walked through the door, she found Elijah waiting in the living room, the space dimly lit by the warm glow of a single lamp. The photos were laid out like evidence in a courtroom, each one screaming the truth she could no longer hide from. Care to explain this? Elijah's voice was eerily calm, but his eyes were ablaze with betrayal and heartbreak. Annalise froze. Her breath caught in her throat as her gaze fell upon the incriminating images. There was no room for denial. No more pretending. She had been caught. The walls she had built with secrets were collapsing around her. Tears welled in her eyes. Elijah, I don't know what to say. He cut her off, his voice trembling. Not with anger, but devastation. How long? There was a pause, a cruel silence that stretched like a blade between them. And then she whispered, "A few months." Elijah's jaw clenched. He looked at the woman he had once adored, the woman who had promised to walk beside him through every storm, and asked the question that had been burning in his soul. Was it worth it? Annalise's lips parted, but no words came. Because deep down, she didn't know. The passion, the danger, the thrill, it had felt like a dream. But standing here, stripped of illusion, face to face with the man whose heart she had broken, that dream now tasted like ash. Elijah stood suddenly, his voice low but steady. "I deserve better." And with that, he walked away, leaving behind the silence, the sorrow, and the ruins of a love that could no longer be saved. The fallout came quickly. Elijah filed for divorce. News of the affair spread through the company like wildfire. Damien, once untouchable, found himself at the mercy of scandal. The board turned cold. His power unraveled. His name was no longer spoken with respect, but with scorn. As for Annalise, she stood alone in the wreckage she had created. The man she had risked everything for had vanished into the fog of his own disgrace. And the husband she had taken for granted was gone, not just in presence, but in spirit, forever unreachable. Some betrayals carve too deep. Some choices echo for a lifetime. And some sins can never be undone.